Hi, everybody, and welcome to the video. This week we are going to be creating a virtual machine inside Microsoft Azure. So, first step, as always, we need to go ahead and log into the Azure portal. So we're going to go to portal.azure.com. Once we're inside there and we're logged in, we can click on our um, hamburger icon over in the top left corner. That gives us all of our options. And we can come down here to virtual machines and we can click on virtual machines. And hopefully, if you're logged in correctly, you should see something very similar to this or exactly like this. And as you can see here, right off the get, we can just go ahead and click the create button. But we can also, do some exploring around and see what else we have going on. There's a maintenance tab and a reservations tab and so on and so forth. Not really anything we can do without having any virtual machines here. We'll be back into this menu when we're done creating our virtual machine though. So we can just go ahead and click the create button here. When we click the create button, it's going to give us the option to either create an Azure virtual machine, one with a present configuration, or some other options as well. We're just going to click on our first option here, create an Azure virtual machine. Once we click on that, this comes into the creation wizard, and you can see that there's a couple different segments that we're going to go through. We're going to go through this kind of slowly so that you guys can see everything that's available. First and foremost, we need to make sure that our subscription is set. So we have Azure for Students. That's what you guys should see. We're going to click on that, make sure that that's the one we use. You shouldn't have more than that option, so should automatically populate. Then we want to make sure that we use the correct resource group. Um, Here, we're going to use our name. So in my case, mkid. In your case, it'll obviously be something different. If you don't already have a resource group, something's wrong because you should have done that a couple labs ago, but go ahead and create a new resource group if that's necessary. Then we need to name our virtual machine. Now, those of you that have had classes with me before, we've used VMware Workstation to create our virtual machines. And when we name our virtual machine, the name is just a name that is available inside VMware Workstation. And with Azure, it's a little bit different. And I'll show you later on how that is. But we're going to go ahead and name our virtual machine Windows 10 client. We can't have any spaces in here. And you'll understand why once we get through with this, but we can't have any spaces, so Windows 10 client is just fine. The region that we're going to use is East US, unless you're an online student and you're somewhere else. Use whatever the closest region is for you. Um, and then as far as available zones, we have um, our availability options. We have our availability zone, which is a physically separate resource within the Azure region. We have a scale set virtual machine, which is a distributed virtual machine across multiple zones. And then we have an availability set, which is an automatically distributed virtual machine across multiple domains. We just want to stick with availability zone. This is going to be the only place that we're utilizing this virtual machine is at our um, class or in our home, so we don't need it to be resourced across multiple zones. Um, as far as zone options, self-select is fine. We don't need to go anywhere there. And then the availability zone that we're going to go with, you can choose any one of these, but we're going to stick with zone one, just because, again, we don't need multiple zones and there's no reason to change from zone one to zone two or whatever. The security type, we're just going to stick with trusted launch virtual machines. That's what they have automatically. We could do standard if we wanted to, which would reduce the security. Again, this isn't a production environment, so we're not really worried about this. But if you were in a production environment, you definitely want at least trusted. You may even want confidential, but we'll stick with the trusted. Under image, this is where we get to choose which virtual machine operating system we're utilizing. And as you can see here, there's a lot of options. It shows a couple Ubuntu's, Linux, Red Hats, SUSE Linux, some Windows Server, um, different versions of Windows Server, and then we're going to use Windows 10 Pro. But there's a lot more than just these. If you wanted to click on See All Images, you actually could. We're not going to do that right now because the image that we need is right here. So we choose the Windows 10 Pro version 22H2. The VM architecture is going to be x64. We don't need to worry about changing that. Um, we don't need to worry about the spot discount, and um, we're never going to worry about that. So we're not even going to get into it. As far as the size is concerned, we can stick with the standard, but we can look here and see some other opportunities. You can go with a smaller, only CPUs, or sorry, only one CPU as opposed to two, or only 3.5 gigs of memory as opposed to eight. We're just going to stick with the standard because, um, we want to make sure we have enough memory and everything for it to run quickly. Um, it asks if we want to enable Hibernate as a option. Notice that it says that the size that we selected doesn't allow for hibernation, so we can't enable it. But even if we could, we don't need to. As for a username, we're just going to type in student. And as for a password, normally we would just do our CNT password, but there's some password restrictions on this. So we're actually going to do the capital C and then NTP at symbol SSWRD, and we're going to add the at symbol again and the letter one, or the number one, sorry. That will give us a length and password requirements. So we'll type that in again, CNTP at symbol SSWRD at one. And that'll just give us the password requirements that we need there. We don't need to worry about changing the public inbound ports. We don't want to set this as none. We want to allow selected ports because if we set it as none, then there'd be no way to get in from the outside, which is how we're going to get into the machine. Um, so we want to allow selected ports, and then we want to change it up. We're going to go ahead and allow HTTP and HTTPS as well as RDP so that we can gain access a couple different ways into the virtual machine. And then lastly, on this page, we want to confirm that we have an eligible license, even though technically we don't. We just want to confirm that so that we can actually make this. Then we click next and we get into our disks area. Um, as you can see here, there's a lot of different options for how we set up our disks. We can set it up so that it can be encrypted, but we don't want to do that. We can change the disk size. Right now it's at 127 gigabytes. We could make it bigger or smaller. Actually, it looks like bigger is the only way to go. But we'll just leave it at the 127 gig. We don't need it to be any larger than that. The type of disk, we can change this from SSD or sorry, premium SSD to a standard SSD or a standard HDD, so on and so forth. Again, we're just going to leave it alone. We don't need to change a bunch of this stuff. We do want to make sure that the check mark for deleting the operating system's hard drive with the virtual machine, when you delete the virtual machine, we want to make sure that that checkbox is checked. And then key management, we're going to leave it as platform managed key, but we could do customer managed if we wanted to. We'll talk about all that stuff later. Go ahead and click next, and now we're at the networking section. I believe networking as far as modules is concerned for this course is our next module. So we'll be talking a lot about networking then. For now, you'll see here if you click on the Windows 10 client VNet, it's the only option um, that's available other than our name, and you can't click on your name anyways. So the Windows 10 is the only one that's available. Um, the default 10 is the only one that's available as well. And the public IP, again, only option is this new one. So it's creating new for all three of these because we don't have anything configured as of right now. If we had more than one virtual machine and we wanted to have them talk together, we would be mindful of which ones we're using here. But because it's the first virtual machine we're creating, all of these are going to stay the same. Network security group, we're just going to leave this as basic. Uh, again, allowing select ports inbound. We want to do that because we want to be able to access it. And notice it does give us a little warning message saying that there's having RDP is not a good idea, um, but it's only used for testing purposes, which is what we're doing here. It asks us if we want to delete the public IP and NIC when the VM is deleted. We can go ahead and click on that as well. Um, Again, if we were using multiple virtual machines, we wouldn't want to click on this because we might be using those same public IPs and network cards with other virtual machines. But because this is our first virtual machine, we want to just go ahead and enable this. As far as load balancing, we're not going to play with that right now. We'll talk about load balancing later on in the course. Go ahead and click next for the management window. And you can see here that there's a couple different types of management. Notice that we have the ability to log in with Microsoft Entra ID. In future virtual machines, when we create these, we want to make sure that this is enabled because we want this to be working with our Active Directory. For now, we're not going to enable this. Auto shutdown is also an option to enable auto shutdown. All we have to do is click on this and we can have it shut down at a specific time inside of a specific time zone. This is actually not a bad option for you guys if you want to configure this so that it shuts down and we don't run out of our free money. But I'm not going to enable this. I'm going to show you guys how to shut down properly and how to verify that machines are shut down because I don't want you to use this auto shutdown as a crutch. You can enable backups on this or site recovery. Again, things we don't really need to worry about. This is extra cost association. So we don't want to, and we don't have backups or site recovery set up yet. So we don't need to worry about this because again, this is just a test environment. Last thing is how the updates are done. This is done through Windows Automatic Updates. We can change it to manual updates if we wanted to, but we're not going to. We're going to leave it as automatic. We'll go ahead and click next to go to monitoring, and you can see that there's not a whole lot of options here for monitoring. We can set up alerts, we can do diagnostics, and we can do health checks. Again, none of these are things that we're going to be addressing in this video. We can do stuff like this in later videos. After that, we get to the advanced tab. You can see here that it provides the possibility for some extensions or for other VMware applications that can be installed. If we want to set up some custom data for a script that's being run when the virtual operating system is being created. Again, none of this is all pretty advanced stuff that we're not going to be dealing with, so we're just going to skip past all this. As far as tags, tags are just a name value pair that enables you to categorize your resources. So you could actually give the name to this virtual machine other than the name that we've already given it. Nothing we need to worry about. So we'll skip past that. And now we're at our final checkpoint where we're at the create screen. It has done its check to validate, and the validation passed, so we're good there. It shows us what the price per hour is for this virtual machine. So you can see that it's 0.096 cents, um, or sorry, $0.096. So it's about 9 cents, 9.6 cents an hour to run this virtual machine, which doesn't seem like a lot, but this is a 15-week course. You could, if you left that virtual machine running nonstop, you could run out of money pretty quick. So that's why we want to make sure that these computers are shut down when we're not utilizing them. So this tells us how much that's going to cost. Um, Obviously, we're not paying anything because we have that $100 of free money. But if we were and you had a credit card in here, like I said, if you don't turn these things off, it could become very expensive very quick. Again, it lets us know that we have that RDP port open, which is only recommended for testing, of course. Gives us our basic configuration of what this virtual machine looks like. And then down at the bottom allows us to hit the create button. Once we hit that create button, it should tell us that it's starting to deploy, and then it will automatically go to the actual screen for the Windows 10 virtual machine. Notice that it still says deployment in progress. This is going to take a couple of minutes. So, you know, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Once it's all done, then we'll be able to move on to where we can actually go into the virtual machine. But at this point, get up, have a drink, or do whatever it is you're going to do, depending on how fast your internet connection is and all of that. This might only take a minute. Um, you can see there that mine is already done. It says deployment is complete. So now I can either go to the resource or I could create another virtual machine. We're not going to create another virtual machine. We're just going to go straight to the resource. And here we are. Notice here that it says Windows 10 client virtual machine agent status is not ready. This is because this virtual machine was just created. We're gonna have to give it a little while longer for this to finish its development so that we can actually power the virtual machine on. Once this icon goes away, it will show us that we're able to connect to this computer. So again, this might take a couple minutes. When I did this the first time, it took me, I want to say maybe 5 minutes. So if you want to get up, go grab yourself something to drink or use the restroom or whatever, you know, do what you got to do. Okay, I went ahead and clicked the refresh button after waiting for a little while, and I was able to get this to show up. So now we can actually start utilizing this virtual environment. You can see here we have a connect button. We also have a restart, stop, um, capture, delete, so on and so forth. We're just going to go ahead and connect. We'll click on the connect button and click connect. And here it asks us, how we want to connect. We can either connect using the public IP address since we opened it up for HTTP, or we can set it up for RDP. I'm going to select that. When I do, it asks us, or it shows us the native RDP connection. If we click on download RDP file, you'll see that it downloads pretty quickly. Then it's going to ask us if we want to connect because this is a unsecure connection. We'll say connect. You might have to install the license since it's your first time. I've already done this once before, so you know, it is what it is. Then we're going to go ahead and type in the password, which is the capital C N T P @ symbol SSWRD @1. And here we are. Now that I've logged in, it asks us to if we want to connect. We're going to go ahead and click on View the certificate. We're going to click Install the certificate. We're going to leave it as current user and click Next. And we're going to leave it as automatically and click Next and click Finish. Once the import of the license is successful, we'll go ahead and hit OK, and then we can click Yes, which will allow us to connect to our virtual machine. And this will just take a couple minutes for us to be able to log in. And just like we would any other install, it's going to give us some different options, such as the privacy settings. We're going to go ahead and turn all these off. Click Accept. Luckily, this is the only option it gives us as far as that's concerned. Then it's going to ask us if we want this virtual machine to be discoverable. We'll go ahead and say yes. And we can close out of this. And now we have a Windows operating system. Now, note in the beginning, I said that we named the computer, and it's a little bit different than virtual machine. And let me show you why that is. If we open up our command prompt and we type in hostname, if we were to hit enter on this with using VMware Workstation, we would have some random hostname because we'd have to auto configure it. However, with Azure, when we hit hostname, you can see that it actually puts in the hostname that we typed in earlier. This isn't like a huge feature, but it is kind of a nice little feature of having the virtual machine through Azure. Just that one little step you don't have to worry about when you're configuring. So this is a fully functioning virtual machine. We have our internet capability here. If we open up Microsoft Edge, we can go through all the stupid stuff of Microsoft Edge, and we can come here to Google, and you can see Google works just fine. So this is a fully functioning Windows virtual machine that we have now. In fact, this is a Windows 10 Pro virtual machine, which gives us the ability to install Hyper-V on it as well if we wanted to, which we'll probably do in a later video. But for now, let's just go ahead and shut it down. And to do that, we're going to go down here to our Windows icon, and we're going to hit the power button, and we are going to hit shut down, not disconnect. By shutting it down, what that does is it actually shuts the actual server or virtual machine down, so we're not paying for it when we don't need to. We can close out of this, and we can come back here and click refresh. And we're back to this virtual machine. Now, if we come back up here and click on our sandwich button again, and we come into virtual machines, we can see our virtual machine that we created, what the subscription service is, what resource group it's in, and everything. And might have to hit the refresh button here. It says that status is that it's updating. Once it's done updating, it'll actually show a status is shut down, which is the status that we want to see. So I'm going to hit refresh here a couple times. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. So status is stopped. So stopped is the status that we want to see on that virtual machine before we end our lab, because we don't want to have that amount being taken out every hour of utilization. Now, we created this virtual machine and that's great, but let's just go ahead and show you how to delete one. We don't need to use this one right now. We'll create another one later on in a different lab, but for this lab, we want to make sure that we delete this one. So we can click on the checkbox here for the Windows 10 client and come up here to delete. A little option will pop up here, and it will show the Windows 10 client virtual machine that we want to delete. Notice that if we had multiples, you could have a whole list here of virtual machines, which is kind of nice. You can delete a bunch of them at once. We click on the checkbox to apply the force delete for the selected virtual machine, and then we have to enter the word delete into this box before we're able to actually delete the virtual machine. We click on the delete button, and then it's going to ask us again if we want to delete it. We're going to say yes. We'll see up here that it's executing the delete command on the item. When it's done, it will show us that it succeeded or failed or whatever. And this might take a couple minutes. There we go. And so now we want to hit our refresh button one more time and verify that there are no virtual machines here. And that's it for this lab. We created a virtual machine in Azure. We were able to see that it has internet access and everything. And then we were able to delete the virtual machine. We will create another one in our next lab, so you don't have to worry about doing that again. But if you want to create another one, doing the same steps that we did before just to get you, then I highly recommend it. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next lab.